All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our bi-weekly provider and pass meeting. Today, we've got a couple things planned through the topics up for today. I've got a meeting section of some updates and some processes to talk to you about. So we're going to start out talking about the member data gathering data survey. Put some focus on that because I think that may have got lost in the shuffle a little bit on the things we've talked to you about. Want to do a quick review of the screening and assessment process. We've done this with the providers. I don't think we fully did this with the passes. So I want to make sure everybody, at least for the pilot piece, is aware of what it's gonna look like in terms of the screening and assessment and approval process during the pilot phase. I'm going to bring up the high-level timeline, which we've talked about numerous times before, but I just want to reset everybody on where we're at with the timeline and where you should be as a provider in terms of your progress throughout the process. Q&A, but obviously if you've got questions throughout, just put them in the chat or raise your hand. We can talk about questions as we go. And then we'll flip it over to John for the vendor spotlight. And then talk about Thursday's speaker series. So all that said, go back to topic number one. So part of the overall screening and assessment process is we want to do initial data collection for each individual that you're screening. And that initial data collection we've put into an online HIPAA compliant form. And the purpose is to just get a baseline of some really kind of straightforward responses about how the individual feels about their day-to-day life, how they feel about their use of technology, or if they use technology, the support that they get in the home. So it's just a 5-question survey, and I'm going to bring it up right now on the screen so we can kind of walk through it, because I don't know that when we talked about it that it landed with everybody. All right, so you should be seeing the survey on the screen. All right, so this would be an online form when you first meet with an individual that you're screening and assessing. You would just go through the survey with them. You can do it in person, you can do it over the phone, whatever works for you. We would then do this survey again approximately 3 months after the technology is installed and implemented in their residence or for them. So very simple. Again, this is a HIPAA compliant form that we maintain here using a company called JotForm. So you're just going to provide name, date of birth for the individual, the address, and the postal zip code. So we have some very basic demographic information on that individual. And then the questions are, again, pretty straightforward and really just want to get the feeling from the individual on where they're at prior to technology. So how independent do you feel in your day-to-day life on a scale from 1 to 5? Do you use any assistive technology, which includes any devices or tools that help you in your day-to-day life? So just a yes or no question. You may need to coach them on that a little bit because not everybody knows what assistive technology is. However, you as an assessor, right, you've gone through shift training. We've been talking about this stuff for months. So you've got a pretty good idea at this point what qualifies as assistive technology. So if they have questions, or if you want to suggest that, oh, you do actually use a med dispenser and that's considered assistive technology, right? Help them answer that question. And then if they do use it, just provide some detail on what they are using and how. Question 3 is, how confident are you in doing things on your own? Again, just a general question, scale of 1 to 5. How often do you need help from others? Never, up to always. And then quality of life question. How would you rate your overall quality of life? So again, just a baseline survey on that person's opinion of how they're interacting with the world. And we will store that. And then the objective is that technology should help push some of those responses in a positive direction. So I'm going to pause there and see if anybody has any questions about that. Okay, cool. And so then the next topic on the agenda is reviewing the process flow that we developed and that we have talked about on this call and a couple other calls previously. See if I can make that a little bit bigger. Yeah, let's go slideshow. That'll do it. Okay. So you, from the provider perspective, right? So this is how we're doing the assessments and the reimbursements and all that stuff during the pilot phase. I want to stress that in the pilot phase. I know we've got folks on here from the passes, and things are going to operate a little differently when we hand off from the pilot phase to operational phase in April of 2025. So just being clear, this is what we're doing during the pilot. You can see the key down here very loosely, like anything that's light blue is something the provider is responsible for, and then anything that is in the darker color is something that the grant team, so my team, Annie, Elena, Harold, Rachel are responsible for. All right, so you as a provider would perform an assessment. So you have links, and we've talked about the assessment tools that are available to you. There's the shift assessment that's provided during the shift training. We also provided you with an alternative assessment form. You can use both of those. You can handcraft your own, but the crux of it is you're capturing information on an assessment form of some sort, and you want to keep that because you need to send that in to us in a later step. After the assessment and after you've sort of determined what the individual is what you think the individual will need in terms of assistive technology, you would engage with vendors. We've had a number of vendor spotlights already. We've got another one today with John and Syngistics. So you've got a pretty good idea of a lot of the vendors and what they offer. We also have our vendor matrix, which you have a link to that shows the vendor capabilities. So there are a lot of ways for you to get input from the vendors on what they do. So engage with the vendors, determine, who can provide the technology that you've assessed as the need. And then you want to make sure that you prepare the technology recommendation and integration plan, right? So there's a form that we've provided links to as well. I'll resend out that email and that communication around those forms in case you don't have those. But that's that technology and recommendation and integration plan is where you're identifying what you discovered in the assessment, and you're listing out, this is what I'm recommending this individual should have, and you're justifying it with a reason. I believe this med dispenser is going to lead to this person being more independent in their life and independent with their medication administration, that sort of thing. So you prepare those forms, and you're going to send them into your SME. So everybody has worked with their SMEs already, and what the SME is going to do is they're going to review the assessment with you. They're going to look through the technology recommendation plan. On your first few assessments, the SMEs are really going to be coaching you up. You've got the shift training knowledge, but actually going and doing the assessment is a bit of a learning process in and of itself. So our SMEs can support you primarily in those first few assessments so that you're capturing the right information, you're documenting it properly, you're providing good justifications so that it really will make sense to us as the grant team. And, we want to coach you up so that those assessments are going to make sense to the passes eventually. So because teaching you how to write them well, basically. And then you're also going to make sure you have that initial member survey completed. So the SME will review all that information. They may call you. They may ask you to make some revisions. So this little loop back here might be a little bit of a, hey, could you provide a better justification? Or, hey, did you think about this technology for this individual? They could probably get more independence in the bathroom if you suggest that they use a bidet, for example. So whatever, back and forth goes on here, the forms get updated. And then for us, we're doing a little internal review once you finalize your recommendation, just to make sure our SMEs are in alignment, that we don't have somebody approving something that another SME doesn't approve. So this is a bit of an internal step. And then you'll get back an approval from your SME, and then we respond with a kind of a form, service authorization form. Basically, just says this is what you put in for. We're signing that's good. Go ahead with it. And then it's on you then to purchase the equipment and the services from the vendor, arrange the installations, get everything done on your end in terms of getting that technology implemented. And then once you're done with that, you can submit for your reimbursement request. So reminder that there's $5,000 worth of technology reimbursement that is available for each individual, up to 20 individuals that you assess and implement technology for. So the grant team will authorize up to $5,000 per person. And then we'll be providing the reimbursement back to you. I'm going to pause there. Thought it was important for passes and providers to get a exposure and reminder on this process, and like to take any questions if you have them. The providers have the forms and links. Folks from the passes, I don't think you do. I'm going to take a note to figure out how to make those available to you, so you can kind of see what we're working with and map those forms to this process. Shouldn't be hard. I might need to just attach some of them to an email to you, but I'll take that action item so you can actually see the form.
This is Jen with CareSource, and from a pass perspective, just wondering, how will the passes know who of their members will be selected for the pilot, if it's been done yet or they're still trying to figure that out? I'm just wondering, how will we know who, which pass members we have that are part of the pilot per provider?
So that's a good question, because we're not, what DHS has asked for is a list of the members who are participating, so that they can align that list of members with the passes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure I specifically asked them what they're going to do with that. Like, are they going to reach out to you at that point in time? I assume so, but I need to probably ask that question specifically.
Okay, so
go ahead.
I was just saying, we don't quite know yet. Maybe we can just put that on the parking lot and follow up and kind of come back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the providers are certainly going to know who the pass is for the member, but we don't actually have a step in here for them to alert you in any way. So I'm going to take that action, discuss it with DHS, just to confirm that they're going to reach out to you.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, good question, Jim. All right. Any other questions on that? All right. If not, then I want to go to the high-level timeline. High-level timeline. I do it. It's here. Trust me, it's here. There. Okay. Now we're good. Okay. So what this is something that was shown, as early as maybe 2 months ago, primarily to the providers, but I think we also have talked about it in a larger group setting. This is a suggested work stream timeline for all the providers. Asterisk number one, not all providers started in June. So we had some providers start as late as late July. All right, so we know some providers are not going to be on this timeline. Second thing is these are estimated lengths of time. It really was to give the providers an idea of the breadth of time that it may take to do certain things. So here's the good news. Well, there's a lot of good news in this project so far. Let me just start from the top and work our way down. We're getting very close to having the provider training completed in shift. Patrick's been doing a great job working with all of the providers, really helping them through the process. We're getting several providers have already closed out their training. Some more still have a little bit more work to do, but again, everybody started at a different time. DHS also going through the trainings, PASS is also going through the trainings, and it's important that you folks stay focused on finishing the training as well. We introed all of our providers to their SME, member of the grant team that's guiding them through the whole process. And as the provider ETIS, integration specialists, finished their training, they were knowledgeable enough to begin writing policies and procedures or updating policies and procedures, and also to begin identifying individuals who might be good candidates to be part of the 20 who get the technology. So that's all been going on. The policy and procedures are in process, and we hope to have them closed up very soon in the next couple of weeks. A lot of individuals have already been identified. And then once they're identified, individual assessments should take place. So that was the process we just talked about in the last section, that workflow. Realistically, I think those need to be wrapped up by the beginning of November, or the bulk of them at least, because the SME review process could take some time and a little bit of back and forth, but also the technology implementation, depending on what you're getting. Don't underestimate the lead time that might be necessary. If you're ordering an Alexa and just need to get that set up, that's not a long pole in the tent, right? If you're going to do window and door sensors and motion detectors and some elaborate configuration of alerts based on how those motion detectors and sensors interact and alert, it could take your vendor, a few weeks at least to get all that prepped. So make sure you are getting ahead of the game and don't think that, assessing somebody and ordering technology in January is going to guarantee you have it in place by the end of March. Just a word to the wise from previous painful experiences with implementations on my end. You're going to do the initial data surveys, and then we'll do some follow-up data outcome and collections. And then the last thing I want to point out, as you come out of shift training, Patrick or Jill are going to reach out to you about shift accreditation and getting your application submitted. I'm happy to say several of the providers have already submitted their accreditation applications, and that accreditation approval process will then happen. And just a reminder, there are incentive dollars tied to both the accreditation application and the accreditation approval. So you as a provider are going to want to pursue that. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions or comments around what that timeline looks like overall or for them in particular?
Is it just the providers that submit the shift accreditation applications?
That is correct.
Perfect. That's what I thought. Just making sure.
Yep.
Let me add one quick thing there. That's true. But for part of the project, especially if you're a PASS organization, your cooperation and support within the overall project doesn't mean, well, it does mean that we need to make sure that education deadlines are still met as much as possible because, as they're connected. So just because you are not pursuing accreditation doesn't really mean it offers a bit of levity with the process of accreditation, but you still need to get that complete. So anyway, that's all I wanted to add. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. All right. Those are the topics I had. Any additional questions from anybody before we switch over to John? All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to create a brand new recording.